And Dave, we appreciate you sharing those stories. That's better than watching the video. I like the one about the flagman though, because when I got here in the early 80s, there was a driver here that actually was chasing down our flagman on the, you remember the story, don't you? On the racetrack, and that was on purpose. Yeah, that flagman's not working for us anymore, but it wasn't as funny at the time, really. It's probably still not funny, but it brings some memories up there. Albert Barney Peets, known as Barney Peets, was a charter member of the Evergreen Stock Car Racing Association. He signed the incorporate papers, as a matter of fact, corporation papers, back in March 31st, 1955, where they raced at the old Central Park track. From the town of Aberdeen, he was a colorful racer and was instrumental in keeping Elma Auto Racing going. He's got some family today, that's a good thing. Accepting the awards will be stepson Mike Troop, sisters Carlene, Dixie, and Sheila. Come on up. I don't think we have jackets for all of them. I saw some of your sisters are here, right? I saw some people shaking their heads. That means they weren't coming up, I guess, right? But enlighten us and tell us how you found out about this.
Well, first of all, when I talked with my sisters, we talked about who was going to come up and talk. All the fingers were pointed at me, so I guess I was the one that was elected. What we'd seen was the article in the newspaper that said that this was going on, and Dad was being inducted. And it's kind of a shock, really. I mean, I haven't heard anything about it, and I think it's a great thing going on. For the people who put their heart and soul into stock car racing in this area, and still do. It's a way of life, it's a being, and that's what it was for Dad. I can remember when we first built the track in Central Park, it was on my uncle's property. Iowa Beck was his name. And Dad talked and talked and talked and twisted arms and cajoled and finally got Uncle Allen to agree, yeah, he can build a tractor. I remember we were out there clearing it. Of course, I'm probably 5 years old at the time, so this is just memories that are kind of fuzzy. But Dad had his delivery van out there, and he was clearing some stumps. And I remember he put some dynamite under this one stump. And he lit it off, and we got back behind the truck and went boom, and the stump didn't move. And of course, anybody that knew Dad, he had some colorful language at times. So he loaded that stump up with a little more dynamite, he lit it off, and it really went boom this time. The dust flew and the wood flew, but one of the pieces of that stump almost hit his delivery truck. I mean, it blew that much apart. So anyhow, we got that stump out of there, and he felt really good about that. So we finished building the track and used 2x4s and such to build the grandstands, and it was just a short period of time that we were racing at that track. And then along came the movement to Elma. I learned some things that I didn't know. And of course, it was a horse racing track at the time, and they thought that stock car racing up here would bring in a lot more interest, a lot more money, a lot more people coming in, and obviously it's done so for a lot of years. And so we moved up here. And Dad raced and raced and raced, and every weekend it was get ready to go to the races, pack everything up, food, clothing, everything else. You got up here as early as you could, and you left as late as possible, and the day was over. Of course, everybody was tired, but you felt good about what happened for the day, win or lose. Well, one day, Dad was racing, and he was up front of the pack, and he was pushing it pretty hard. Somebody hit him in the left rear, and I don't remember who it was. It's part of racing. And so he headed for the dirt berm. And he told me in his somewhat colorful language, and I'll tone it down a little bit. He said, somebody hit me, and he had some names for the person. And he said, I was headed for the dirt. He said, I knew I couldn't control it. So he said, I said, the hell with it. And let go of the steering wheel. Well, he took out 240 feet of fence. And at that time, he got the nickname as Fence Hog. But of course, as Dad was, he was one of the first ones back in and replacing the fence when the time comes. And that's what he did. My sisters and I can all attest that many times we were in the stock car from South Avenue down Curtis Street, and he'd put a helmet on, goggles, we'd hold on to the roll bars, and he'd take the car up and down Curtis Street. Well, one day at spring when I was getting ready for auto racing, he said, come on, let's go. Put the helmet and goggles on me, and we headed down Curtis Street. We didn't stop at the end of Curtis Street. We went down the boulevard, we went over the bridge, and we stopped at the light at the bottom of the bridge, and I don't know if any of you remember Tony Mize and the Avenue policeman. But Tony come up there, and again, I'll tone it down a little bit. He said, Brian, what the hell do you think you're doing? And he says, well, it's stock car season. I'm warming up the car. He said, get this damn thing back before I throw you in jail. So we're on the other side of the bridge and back to one again. And anybody that knew Dad, that was him. He was colorful. He never followed the tried and true. He always had to make his own path. So he had one car that I remember in particular because it grew quite a stir. It was a pink car with purple polka dots. And he had a little design on the back post of the roof, and I won't go into explanation on it, but after the first race, the association come up and said, you know, you either have to remove that or you don't race. So I remember I'll come to tape, and we taped it over, and he went back to racing again, because that was the important part. And even upon occasion, my mother would be the trophy girl and come out and hand out the trophy to the winning racer. But there was nothing that meant more to Dad, excuse me, than to just get out and race. And that was him from day one. So thank you very much. Really appreciate what you've done. I think this is fantastic.
And Mike, thanks for sharing those stories. Do me a favor, because back in '55, I was only 1 year old. I still want to vision. Now, if we go up the hill, leaving Elma here, Montesano, and start climbing the hill right where the old Clemens Road is, whereabouts can, I know I want to do it. I've been trying to, I want to vision where that facility was. I love seeing old racetracks even though we can't see it, but tell me where, if you can remember where the location was.
If you look at compass point directions, that's on the south.
I don't know how to read a compass.
Okay, if you go up the hill and you hit the Clemens Road, you're going to take a left. That very first property on the corner was my uncle's property. Now it's a housing section.
Right.
My uncle's house was a three-story house that sat back quite a ways off Clemens Road, and to the south of it was the track.
Nice. Very interesting. How big was the track?
3/8, I believe.
Nice. Very good. Thank you. Because I'm still going to drive up there and take some photos. I know it's a housing district. I have a relative that lives right on Clemens Road. I don't claim her, but she's up there. You know who it is. That's right. You know exactly what it is. And I love the suspenders, Dave. I got to tell you, it looks great with that. They're acceptable in steel, and especially in this area, but I got to tell you, this is not a story. This really happened yesterday. We've had a little bit of water issue at our place. I don't know why, but that's just normal. And our plumber came up. He had suspenders on, but he had them on with sweats. Don't do that. It does not look right. Even in Elma, it doesn't look right. I said, this is not a story. It really happened. But hey, he got the job, and that's all that matters, right? Only in Elma. Another charter member of the Evergreen Stock Car Racing Association was Montesano's Harold Clevenger, who started his racing, of course, at the Hilltop track that we've been talking about up in Central Park. Harold ran a jalopy for a short period of time, at which he decided he would be better suited as a car owner. Nick Sabono, now I was told this, I'm not saying he wasn't a good race car driver, some gentleman told me this, right? Nick Sabono raced for Harold in 1956 for 5 years and claimed a couple of jalopy titles. Then it was Bill Skaggs' turn at the wheel, taking home the season-end trophy back in 1965. Harold's cars mostly sported the number 23 on the side, so probably a familiar number to most of you. He took a break, a good break, as a matter of fact, in 1969, and in later years helped prepare the track and was known as a jack of all trades around the speedway. After taking nearly a decade off, Harold was over in eastern Washington, my own stopping grounds as a matter of fact, the old track I grew up at, was visiting a friend, and they took in a race, and that was probably a mistake, right? Because he took in a race, and all of a sudden, bang, he was hooked again. So I'm not telling you guys that are retired not to come out tonight, because you might start back up again, and I can understand. And at that point, he came home and he asked his son Bruce, who he wanted to get back into racing. So they did, with Bruce getting behind the wheel from 1983 to 1989. About that time the mods became more known as sprint cars. Harold quit again in 1990 and then unfortunately passed away in 1992. His lovely wife, Kathleen, passed on, as a matter of fact, June of this year, as most of you know. They also had another son, Troy, who also took his turn behind the wheel, and a daughter, Cheryl Reed, whose husband, Ron, also strapped into Clevenger's race cars. Living in Montesano all those years, Harold, Nick Savono, Howard Carter, they all lived within a block of each other, helping each other out, which was pretty cool back then, and, you know, people helping each other out in the racing world. And neighbors, right? One unique note about Harold was he ran a 6-cylinder Ford with tri-power, 3 carburetors, if you don't know what that is, and was very competitive. One final story about Harold is the rock incident with Rally Root. And at this time, I'm going to call up his son, of course, Bruce, who, by the way, that's the best buck I ever spent with dinner, buddy. I learned more from you than I had in a long time. And I want to thank him for sitting down with me and talking about the past, and to accept the Hall of Fame award and tell that famous rock throwing incident, because you know it a lot more than I do. Bruce Clevenger, come on up, buddy.